for office, if it has created any problems for you in your candidacy, and what you view as sort of the importance of that representation in Congress.
Thanks. I'm really proud to say none at all.
Great.
There's been nothing, and it's been great. It's such a it's just such a different day. Mm-hmm. It's it's been a great experience. My husband and I were a little bit worried about it. Mm-hmm. We've been through quite a bit here in Ohio, fighting for marriage equality and continuing to fight for non-discrimination legislation to protect LGBTQ individuals from, discrimination in employment and housing. And so, that remains a big challenge. And certainly one of the things that I'm eager to work on as a matter of course is to get, to co-sponsor and help get the Equality Act passed, which would get rid of that kind of discrimination on a federal level, which is the right thing to do. And there are, here in Ohio, there recently has been proponent testimony for a statewide non-discrimination law that is heartily supported by business, big business as well as small business. And so the protests against this are really, I think, just a matter of politics and polarized politics at this point. And so I think that this is something that we can get done because a lot of people are behind it. But to get back to your question, no, as an openly gay candidate, it's been great. People are curious. Mm-hmm. How am I going to run in a district like the 15th, which is a pretty solid Ohio moderate district, with some pretty moderate and traditional communities. And, what I say is, look, first of all, everyone knows what's going on, right? Everyone knows that, I'm a guy married to a guy and that we have these two children. And, I just say to people, look, at the end of the day, I want to give people a choice between me and Representative Stivers. And, there's one of us who is going to fight like hell to help communities make that fair and just transition to the new economy that's coming. And there's another one that's just going to leave them out there hanging out to dry. So I'm hoping that people will give me a look and will choose me as their champion to fight and advocate for them, because that's what I've done in my past, and that's what I want to do moving forward. So it's been a great experience, and I will be really proud to be the first openly LGBT congressperson, and not just in Ohio, but Michigan and Indiana and even Illinois. Hopefully that will be, that can be inspiring and will help me identify and fight against discrimination, everywhere it happens. But in the end of the day, the important thing is that I fight for and advocate for, all the communities in this district for that better future.
Terrific. Is there anything else that you would like people to know about you or about Ohio?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on. I got to tell you, usually the congressional races in Ohio are a little sleepy. The districts are really set, and it is phenomenal this year to see the kind of energy and engagement and the real thirst for change that's out there. And, we probably have 5 or 6 or 7 terrific congressional races this year, all across the state. We all know each other and we all, try to support each other. And so there's a lot going on in Ohio this year. And I got to say, even within the 15th district, see it all the time. What I hope people know, the news out of Washington every day can be discouraging. Sometimes it's often outrageous, and you just think to yourself, wow, how can this be happening? We just really seem to be going in the wrong direction, and it can be hard. But my experience when I get out of the house and get out into the district and I see what's going on, and you know who it is it's women. It's women all over the district who have had it with what is happening. Everywhere I go in the district, I can say, well, my gosh, so much is happening all the way from up here in Columbus. There's a group of women who started getting together on both sides of the aisle and said, we need to get more women elected to office here in Ohio. So they got together and they've, brought women from all over the political spectrum together, and they've raised more than $750,000 into a PAC, and they're off to the races. They started making endorsements, and they're getting involved, and they are going to achieve their goal of getting more women elected to office in Ohio. It's amazing. And I'll go out to a town like Wilmington down in Clinton County, which is a pretty conservative area. And there's a small group of women that have gotten together there. They call themselves the Alliance for Compassion and Truth. And they're professional women and housewives and retirees and professors at Wilmington College. And they get together every couple of weeks and they bring in political experts and campaign people to help them, to train them on political activism, and they're amazing. They are a progressive group, and so they're dedicated to getting more Democrats and progressives elected to office. There was a woman there on Wilmington City Council, a terrific woman named Kelsey Swindler, and they helped her get reelected last November, and 2 more Democrats on Wilmington City Council. And that's, Wilmington is pretty conservative. So that's the kind of practical activism that's happening all through the district. And so as hard as it can be to watch what's happening, I think it's encouraging to know so much great stuff happening, in every community to get our country back on track and do better for everyone.
I love it. I'm super excited about Ohio this year.
It's going to be awesome. Yeah, it's going to be great. And everybody should come to Ohio and help us out in November if they can.
I may take you up on that.
All right. Well, you got a place to stay.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And we will put in our show notes, we'll put links to your website and your Facebook and Twitter so everybody can check those out and maybe drop you a few dollars.
Thank you. And if you can add a link to the video too, I would love it.
Yes, I will do that.
All right. Hey, it's great talking to you. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, you too.
Hey, this is Liz.
And this is Heather.
And we are Nerdy Bitches Podcast,
a show where 2 geeky ladies podcast their way through pop culture.
From movies and TV to our regular book club and everything in between, we bring you our favorite fandoms with a feminine eye.
We're talking Star Wars, Star Trek, Harry Potter, DC, Marvel, comic books, and anime.
And don't forget sci-fi, fantasy, action movies, video games, D&D, board games, and so much more.
Be sure to check us out on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, or wherever you find awesome podcasts.
You can also find us hanging out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and at nerdybitches.com.
Talk to you soon.
In this segment, I am here with Jill Schiller, who is running for Congress from the Ohio 2nd District. Hello, Jill.
Hi, Kelly.
Thank you so much for joining me. So as I've mentioned to Jill already, my brother and sister-in-law live in the 2nd District, so although I've never lived down in the southern part of the state, I know a little bit about it. Jill, can you start just by giving us some background about who you are and why you've decided to run for Congress?
Sure. I'm an attorney, recovering, I like to say. And yeah, there's a bunch of us. I'm from Philadelphia originally. Founded a children's creative writing and literacy nonprofit in Philadelphia in 2008, and I'm proud to say it's 10 years old and still making a difference in children's lives. In 2009, I got the chance to work in President Obama's White House at the Office of Management and Budget, where I learned how to help make government more efficient and deliver more services to more people for less money. In 2011, my husband got hired at a company in Cincinnati, and we moved here, which was good timing. I was pregnant with my daughter, Reagan, and Cincinnati is just a great place to raise a family. My first job here was at Downtown Cincinnati Incorporated, which is a provider of special services in a business interest district. I think a lot of towns have them. I'm sure Chicago does. They, help make downtown a better place to live, work, and play in ways that are kind of outside the normal economic development channels. So ambassadors, the folks who often will be downtown cleaning up or making sure that, they're kind of extra safety things like that. I ran operations for them, took some time off to have my son, Ben. Most recently, I've been consulting for Cincinnati Museum Center in strategy, management, communications, although now I'm running for Congress, which is a full-time job.
I'm sure, yeah.
I decided to run because I looked out at the district, which has been in Republican control for over 20 years now, and I just saw a lot of need and a lot of things that could be done by our current representative that weren't being done. And it really, struck me as important because we have a vast difference in our district between, we're very urban here in Cincinnati on the western end of it, and it goes out east through to Portsmouth, which, as everybody knows, I think, has a long history of being the center of the opioid crisis. It just really became apparent that there was so much that should be done that hasn't been done. And I'd like to change that.
So for people who aren't as familiar with the 2nd District, it's way down at the bottom of the state in Ohio. So Cincinnati is the southwest corner of Ohio.
Yes.
And border then along Kentucky. Really, you can sort of drive into Kentucky and not even realize it. I mean, you cross a river, but
right.
But a lot of people go back and forth between Cincinnati and Kentucky regularly. So it seems like an area that sort of borders an urban area would have a chance of being a Democratic district. But this district, as you noted, has been Republican for a really long time. Can you talk about sort of what you see as your path to victory in a district like this?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because it's a really interesting district. As Democrats, we haven't really competed here in a long time. You have to look back to the races. There was a special election in 2005 where a guy by the name of Paul Hackett ran. And then the next two in 6 and 8, our candidate was a woman named Vic Wilson. And those races are the last time that we've run somebody who's very well qualified and also very well resourced. When we did that, Paul Hackett came within about 1,500 votes of beating the incumbent, and Vic Wilson came within 1 to 1.5%. The district itself was way more conservative. This was the previous iteration of it before redistricting. It had Warren County, which is a very rural, very conservative county, and it's just a very small sliver of the city in it. So redistricting happens in 2012, and it gets drawn to protect Steve Shabbat, who is the representative in Ohio 1 next door. So we lost Warren County and gained a much bigger chunk of the city, but stopped running people who had kind of the strategy and the plan in place and the financial resources to actually run against, a Republican incumbent. So this year, we're trying to change that. I think that Hamilton County has gotten progressively bluer throughout the years. Hillary won Hamilton by 14 points, outperformed Obama. And honestly, we also include Chillicothe, part of Chillicothe, which is now headed by a fantastic Democratic mayor, Luke Feeney. And Portsmouth, on the far end, was traditionally a Democratic stronghold. It has gone Republican recently, but the more time that you spend in the eastern part of the district, the more you understand that, because we've got a lot of change voters in our district. It's financially, we've got very high unemployment. We have a lot of people dependent on the Medicaid expansion. We have high numbers of opioid addiction. And so we've got people who are just looking for answers. I think that we can give them something to vote for as opposed to something to vote against. We have a strong platform of jobs, healthcare, and education. And I think it's been a long time since people have had a representative who is able to go to D.C. and bring them the things that they're entitled to from the federal government in those areas. So while it's an uphill battle, I think that we actually are primed for a win here between just the growing number of Democrats in Hamilton County and in Claremont County and throughout the district, really, and by, really listening to the voters and trying to address what they need as opposed to serving some other agenda.
So you mentioned the opioid crisis and how hard it's hitting this district. What are some of the things that you are proposing to help with that?
Well, first off, by declaring it a national medical emergency instead of a national emergency, it means that, there haven't been funds dedicated on the federal level to the amount and extent that they should have been for the kind of immediate on-the-ground medical intervention that we need. And so I would definitely look into obtaining funding for that. But then also, we need jobs. We need good, sustainable jobs that people can count on so that they can raise their families and have access to health care and, the things that you need to be happy and successful in life. And I think that would alleviate a lot of the problem. I mean, it's certainly much more complicated than just that. But in terms of priorities, it's immediate funding for that. And then it's economic development and selling this region to companies who can come here and provide those kinds of jobs like advanced energy companies or coding academies. There's a lot of options that haven't been looked into. And then, of course, increasing education about opioid addiction and use and, looking into prescribing practices. I mean, there are a lot of things that need to be done.
Another issue that I wanted to ask about is education. So we're seeing education coming up more frequently as an issue with teacher strikes going on around the country. What does the shape of education, public education, look like in Southern Ohio? And what are the kinds of things that you would like to see put in place?
So we obviously have to stop gutting the funding of public education. I think that Betsy DeVos has been one of the worst things that can happen to public education in our country. And I think that's apparent. We need to support our public schools because that's how we have an educated population. Obviously, I founded a children's education nonprofit, And I'm also first generation college. My dad was a union water worker in Philly. So education's really close to my heart anyway, but also both of my kids are in public school. And my son, Ben, who's 3, is actually enrolled in a Head Start program because we're getting some special